With the invention of the internet, most people's lives changed. It got to the point where almost everyone I knew wanted to have a computer. A couple of years ago, we finally joined the computer generation and decided to buy one. At first, it was the new toy in the house. Deb, my wife, used it for emailing games. The kids, Kyle and Kayla, used it for playing games and doing homework. I, on the other hand, used it for internet searches and pornography. I often stayed late at work. I worked the second shift and left the factory at midnight. I didn't want to go to bars like a lot of guys. After all, I was married. So I always headed home. Everyone was already asleep and I would sit down at the computer. After a while, the same old got boring. I didn't really become addicted like a lot of people. I went to story websites and read stories about everything imaginable. I couldn't believe most of what I read. Do people really do these things or are they just fantasies? I was hooked by the stories of cheating wives. All these women were cheating on their husbands. It's hard to believe, but it suggested certain thoughts. So now I was kind of watching my wife's actions. When we went on dates, I would tell her about her dancing too close or being too nice to different guys. We even argued about it. I knew she was a good-looking woman, but I had no reason not to trust her. I found myself searching through the clothes hamper or going through our emails. So silly what comes to mind after reading these stories. I started reading less and less, but many thoughts still remained. I remember reading about men who caught their wife with another man and stood there looking at them. I had to ask myself the question, does it really turn you on when you catch your spouse with another man? I kept thinking about it, and given my jealousy, I didn't feel like it could turn me on. I told Deb about these thoughts, and she asked me why I was even thinking these things. She didn't want any other man but me. I met Deb when we were in our 20s. It was at her sister's wedding. We danced and became good friends after that. She told me she worked as a school teacher, and I told her what factory I worked in. We started dating and got married about a year later.
Too soon?
The next year we had Kyle, and 2 years after that Kayla was born. Deb's sister Sandy was a wild girl I met years ago in high school.
I'm gonna leave.
We didn't date, but she was a real slut.
I decided to.
I guess I shouldn't say that, or I'll be considered a slut too. I was pretty wild back in the day too. She had sex with just about anyone. As far as I know, almost every guy on our soccer team was with her. I participated in a threesome after a game she was involved in. No one forced her, and she did it more than once. She and one of her girlfriends, Anne, had sex with almost everyone on demand.
And yell about it.
I knew her husband, Bob,
Her name's
from
Linda
work.
Marshall.
He was one of the day shift supervisors.
And your friend's named Carrie
He'd since been
Fields.
transferred to another plant.
I know
He
where
was
she
just as
lives,
wild
Joe.
as Sandy.
Linda!
He was the one who invited me to their wedding. I didn't care for Bob too much because I knew what kind of man he was. I liked him even less when I decided he was trying to hit on Deb after our wedding. She told me she thought he was just being polite since he was our brother-in-law, but I knew better.
That's all you're gonna do?
I told her that if he tried to do anything
called
to
you
her,
because I
to
need
let
someone
me
to
know
track
and I
this
would
guy
kick
down.
his ass.
I assure you.
She told me to calm down.
We're doing everything
She was
we
mine
can.
and mine alone.
Is this going to take much longer,
We
Detective?
agreed to never talk about our past
this is
relationships
serious.
because we were both pretty jealous people. I didn't want to go on a date one day and run into the guy she had mentioned having sex with.
Have you talked to the
I also didn't
bartender
want to
or the
explain to her
cashier
that I had
tomorrow?
slept with her sister.
Spoke with both of them. Neither had
When
anything
Kyle was
of
8 and Kayla
real
was
value
6,
to
they were both in
contribute.
school, and Deb
We
and I
have the
got along
security
pretty well,
footage.
except for the
And
fights
this
we
will
all
review
have.
to ID the suspect.
We didn't see each other much since
So
we
you
worked
haven't
different
reviewed it yet?
shifts.
These things
I
take
was
time,
alone
so
during the day and she was
if you
alone
can
with
be
the kids
patient.
at night. It wasn't the best
It's hard to be
situation for a
patient,
marriage,
detective, when
but
I'm
that's the
expecting
way it
this guy
was.
to pop up around any corner.
One day, while getting ready
I
for
don't feel
work,
safe.
Deb
Look, I can
asked me if I could
appreciate
come
your
over to her sister
position,
Sandy's
but,
house and fix the plumbing.
We're moving as
Her
quickly
kitchen
as we
sink
can.
was
We
leaking
do
and
not
Bob was
have unlimited
useless as a
resources,
handyman.
and this is
I laughed when she
not
said the
even the
word
case we're
plumbing,
working on.
and she quickly replied, "The plumbing is at the
What
sink,
if I hire
not
a
my
private
sister's."
investigator?
well.
If you ever try
they're
to fix it,
expensive
you'll
and
regret
frankly
it.
don't do much good.
I told Deb that
In
I would
fact, I
stop
find
by
that
on
they
my
do
way to
more
work
to
and fix everything before I
interfere
went inside.
With our
She gave me a
investigation
kiss and
than
then headed
actually
off
do
with
help.
the kids to
Well,
school.
detective, it doesn't seem that there's much
I couldn't
to
help but
interfere
think
with.
about Sandy. From
You
what
don't wanna
Bob had
trust me
told
with
me, I realized that they were probably swingers. They didn't have kids because Sandy always said it would ruin her figure. She didn't have a bad figure, but no better than Deb, and Deb had 2 kids. Sandy was always trying to hit on me. I did my best to just joke around with her. She didn't look bad, but she wasn't worth losing your marriage over. I remember her telling me it would happen someday. Sandy was a part-time cashier at a local grocery store. It was her day off, and she knew I was coming to fix the plumbing. When I arrived, she was wearing a sexy bathrobe. She offered me a
Nice
cup of
office.
coffee, and we talked for a few minutes before she showed me the sink. I
I
realized it was just clogged when I removed everything from under the sink to unclog the siphon. Her husband could probably fix it.
Think I'd be hearing
He
from
probably didn't even
you.
try.
Seemed a bit put off the other night.
I lay on my back with my head under the cabinet
yeah.
and put the siphon back in place.
Sorry, it was.
She had put too many eggshells and
it was a
potato
long
peels
day.
down the garbage
As was
disposal,
today, it
and they
seems.
had clogged the drain.
Yeah.
As I was putting everything back together,
So,
she
over the
stood
phone
up,
you said you've
leaning
got
on
a
me.
guy that's a stalker.
What are you
at
doing,
home,
Sandy?
Work, bar.
I want you.
You filed a police report?
I did.
Stop it, Sandy! I'm trying to finish
And
this job.
To be honest, the police.
She stepped back for a
warned
moment
me
and I
about
finished assembling the
involving
pipes.
someone Like you.
When I was done and stood
But
up, Sandy asked,
It just seems
"Are you
like
going to sleep
Not
with
much
me
they
now?"
can do.
No,
Yeah.
Sandy. I can't do that.
So
Deb is
my
your sister and I
question
love
is,
her. I won't
is
cheat
there
on her,
anything
especially
you can
not with her
do?
sister.
This is my job.
Have you forgotten how it
4
was in
feet,
high
Of
school?
course.
Right.
Are you too good to sleep with me now?
How much do you charge?
Sandy,
$125
please.
an hour, plus mileage.
I
and
love
expenses.
Deb. She doesn't
That's
know about our
$2,000
past together
deposit.
unless you tell her.
And I'm not.
You're a
exactly
beautiful
making
woman, but I
fortune
love
at
Deb.
Bayside Antiques right now. So
You stupid, stupid man.
Look, I
Either you'll sleep with me or
really
I'll tell
hate
Deb you did
stalkers.
it anyway.
You don't deserve
She'll
to have
believe
your
me
life
after all.
terrorized
I'm
by
her
him,
sister.
So I'll waive
Why
the
did you do
deposit.
this?
Okay.
Why hurt us? Deb is your sister and
No
loves you.
offense, but
Sandy laughed. My little
if it
prude
takes
thinks
you
she's a
weeks
slut.
to catch this guy, then that
Let's
doesn't
see how
really
she
matter.
reacts when I tell her about
I've been
it.
doing this a long time, Miss Marshall.
Sandy, don't do
I'll
this.
work quick. Trust
I
me.
won't have sex with you, and I'll tell Deb about how we were in school.
And how about we say
I know she'll understand.
We'll bump my fee
I
down
grabbed
to
my tools and told her I was
80 an
done
hour.
with her damn sink.
Well, I don't want you doing
I jumped in
any
my truck
favors.
and
No
drove to
strings
work.
attached. I promise.
My head was spinning.
Let's call it.
Would Sandy make up some story and
I'm
lie to
sorry I
Deb?
hit on you at the bar. just
Arriving
now.
at work, I called Deb, but she wasn't home
Okay.
yet. I left a
Great.
message.
I'll draw up the paperwork.
Deb, I love you and have something to tell
Well,
you about
thank
your
you,
sister when
Mr.
I get
Zorno.
home tonight.
Tony.
I got to work and got down to business.
Thank you.
It was hard to concentrate with all this
Yes,
shit going
you too.
through my
I'll be in
head.
touch.
Thank you.
It was starting to be a normal day like any other, but now it was all mixed up. Around 6, I called home again, but no one answered. I called Deb's mom and asked if she knew where Deb was. She left with Sandy and Bob. The kids stayed with me. Deb asked if I could watch them for a few hours while they left. I said I'd leave them overnight. I like having them here. Is something wrong, Ray?
He's doing a job.
No,
that's
it's
it.
okay. If you see her, tell her I love her and I'll see
I'll
her
call you
tonight.
later.
I have to get back to work.
Okay.
For me, it was one of the longest nights of my life. I knew I had to tell Deb about me and her sister. Hell, that was before I even met Deb. I'm sure she would have understood. Finally, my day was over and I headed home. As I stopped in front of the house, I saw a car parked in the driveway. I knew it was Sandy's car. Apparently, it was time to face the truth. I went to open the door, but it was locked. I pulled the key out and couldn't believe what I saw. Sitting in the living room were my wife, Bob, and Sandy. Sandy was sitting on my couch holding Deb's hand. Bob was pulling up his pants and my beautiful wife was lying on the couch. Everyone flinched when I opened the door. There was a smile on Sandy's face and a smirk on Bob's face. My wife, Debbie, looked half scared and drunk. Now I had to face reality. I don't know about the guys in the stories I read, but I didn't have a boner. I didn't like seeing my wife in that position. I was beyond furious, ran up to Bob and hit him as hard as I could. I knocked him to the ground. Behind me, I heard screaming. I didn't know if it was Deb or Sandy. I hit Bob probably 5 times before I felt a blow to the back of my head. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. I looked back and saw a man in uniform. It must have been a city policeman. I see you're back in the world. I'm Patrolman Gene Andrews. Where exactly am I and where is my wife? What happened to me? Slow down, Mr. Harper. You have a concussion from being hit on the head with a glass vase. Apparently, you got into a fight in your home and the police were called. They were going to charge you with assault, but the charges were dropped. You were very lucky. You could have gone to jail for a whole 18 months. What about the attack on me?
What you plan on doing?
You said someone hit me in the head.
You gonna break in?
According to witnesses, you came home and started fighting with your brother-in-law. To make you stop, his wife hit you on the head with a vase. You were hit only once, and that was to stop the fight. You should thank them for dropping the charges against you. Where was my wife when you came in? When we arrived, your wife was throwing up. Your sister-in-law said she had too much to drink, and you got angry with her. And when you headed towards her, your son-in-law stopped you and you started fighting with him. He was only trying to defend himself. When we talked to your wife, she said she doesn't remember
What?
much
What
except
are you
that you were
doing here?
yelling at
Oh,
her.
I just took a little tumble in the
If
sand.
the charges are dropped, why are you here?
With your stalker?
My supervisor
Don't
called
call
when you
us.
weren't home yet and
You-
told me to wait and get your statement.
No.
I guess it doesn't
So
really
what
matter.
happened? I have nothing to say.
Seeing him again.
I wasn't going to
Your
tell the
nose are
world that I
bleeding.
caught my wife in bed with another man.
Just a bit of occupational hazard.
I just lay there and didn't say
Is your
anything.
head?
All right,
Seriously,
have it your way.
nothing.
According to the doctor, you will have to stay here until tomorrow.
Hey, why don't you come in?
I suggest you think
Let me
about
take a
what
look
you've
at that.
done, and thank
sure?
God that no charges have been
please.
filed. You are a very lucky man, Mr. Harper. The officer left, and I lay there with a terrible headache. What was I going to do next?
Here, come sit down.
I knew I couldn't live with a cheating wife, but I had to know why she was doing this. I called my sister to pick me up the next morning. I had no way to get home, and I didn't want Debbie picking me up. While I was waiting for Amy, my sister, to arrive, the phone rang. It was Deb. Do you want me to come and get
hey,
you?
This was my husband's.
We need to talk now that we're even. Even?
Seriously.
What the hell are you talking about?
No, please take it.
You slept with Bob and you're saying we're even. Amy's coming to get me. I just want to pick up a few of my things and I'm leaving.
Look, this
What do you mean leave?
Rustin guy.
I was just
He knows
getting
we
even
have
with
his
you for what
ID
you
now,
did,
so
Deb
he's no longer
replied.
anonymous.
I'm not going to talk about it
I
over
doubt
the
he'll
phone.
risk showing his face around here again.
Amy and I will come get my
I
stuff
didn't
and we'll
even know
talk
him. I
then.
mean, why would he
I
pick
hung up
me
the
as
phone and
target?
waited for Amy.
Look,
She showed up a few minutes later and we headed toward my
sometimes
house.
creeps don't need a reason.
I asked
So
Amy
should
to
I
wait in the
take all
car.
this to the police?
I knew she liked Deb, and I didn't want her to be in the middle of
may
anything.
not be the best idea.
I knocked on the door and Deb
Why
opened
shouldn't
it.
they know who he is?
I asked where the kids were and she said they were still at her mom's.
It could complicate
I spoke first.
things.
Did you get my message?
Look, what happened
Yes, and
tonight
Sandy told me how you
in
forced
my
her to
line
have
of work,
sex.
That's normal.
How could you do that?
These
She
cops
cried
found out I
softly.
roughed him up a bit.
I didn't do anything like
That could
that.
make some headaches for me.
That's why I left the message. I went over to Sandy's house and fixed her plumbing. She started hitting
Okay,
on me.
I
I told her
won't say
no,
a
but
word.
she kept insisting on doing it. She
Thank
told
you.
me that she would tell you that she had sex with me, even though she didn't.
Well, I have to hand it to you. You
I
do
don't believe you.
work fast.
You're lying!
Yeah.
Why would my sister lie to me?
Thanks again for the shirt.
Yeah.
She's jealous of our marriage.
Oh,
She
you
wanted to
okay?
see if she could keep us
Yeah.
apart, and she seems to have succeeded.
A little lightheaded
Why
there.
do you think she sat
should
back
we
and
take
let
you to a
Bob have
hospital?
sex with you?
No, I'm fine.
They are swingers and wanted to get you into it.
Serious,
Looks like they both
Okay.
got what they
Well,
wanted.
I can make you a
You
cup
let
of coffee.
Bob have sex with you and our marriage
you know,
died.
that sounds nice.
No, that's not true. I did it to get even with you. You raped my sister, and I had sex with Bob to get even with you. Sandy even knew you weren't circumcised and that you had a
I wasn't
mole
gonna
on
say
your
that,
upper
but-
thigh. Your sister is a whore. She knew that because I slept with her in high school like every other
Are you
guy.
expecting something?
I never told you because I had a crush on you and didn't want to lose you. Then you said we would never talk about our past relationship, so I left it all in the past. I don't know what to believe. Sandy is my sister. And I'm your husband. You didn't even wait to ask or call me about it. Instead,
This
you
isn't
let
a good
Bob
time,
do it.
Eric.
It's never a good
Do
time.
you really
Linda.
think it would have solved the problem if I had
I'm
raped your
playing nice
sister?
with you. You're
You must
clearly
have wanted
doing
him very
everything you
badly
can
to let
block
them
the sale
talk
of
you
this
into
house.
it.
Look, I can buy
But
your half
Sandy
of the house
said-
and pay you a portion every
I don't
month.
care what your
No.
whore sister
I
said.
need my money now, and I'm gonna do whatever
This isn't
it
just
takes,
about
even
Bob.
if it means kicking you
It's
out.
about you not
If you're gonna
respecting
be
me
that way,
and not trusting me
I'm
to at
filing
least
a motion
listen to
to
the
nullify the
accusations
agreement.
against me.
On what grounds?
If I raped her, why didn't she
You
call the
can't.
police?
Maybe not.
She said she didn't want to hurt me
But
with
if
a
I tried
family
to, all
scandal.
that paperwork takes time.
She had no
Takes a
problem
really
hitting me
long
over the
time.
head and calling the police last night.
You think I'm gonna
She
let you
didn't
get the
yell
best
rape
of me?
because it didn't happen. You can believe whoever you want, but this marriage is over. Why would you
It's
want to
not
live
nice
with a
to rap.
rapist?
Who the hell are
No,
you?
you wanted Bob and you
That's none of
used
your
me for an
business.
excuse.
Is that my shirt?
No, that's not true.
Is this what you've been busy
I
doing?
love you.
Huh? Are you
You
living
better
here?
look up the word love.
This is why you don't want to sell the house?
It doesn't include sex with other men.
No, I see what's
I'll pick
going
up a
on.
few of my things and come back next week for
Sleep
other
with my
things
wife
while you're
and my
gone.
ex-wife.
I'll go to the lawyer
I've
first
got
thing
my
Monday and
facts
start
straight.
filing for divorce.
I'm pretty sure she
Ray,
can
wait.
spend time with whomever she pleases.
This isn't how it was supposed to happen.
You got it wrong, buddy.
Sandy
Not in
said
my
she
house.
forgave you and
as
you
long
would
as I
forgive
own
me.
this place, I say you live
I just
here.
wanted to get even
so
with
get
you.
out.
No, you just had sex with Bob and your sister.
You're gonna make me.
I went and got my suitcase, putting a few
Eric.
personal items in it.
Stop. Just don't.
What do I tell the kids? Tell them whatever you want. I don't care. I don't want to see you anymore. I'll get a lawyer to arrange visits and Amy can take the kids so I can see them.
You just stand there.
I don't ever want to
Let your
talk to you
boyfriend assault
again.
me.
I'm sorry.
I
didn't
opened the
know
door
he
and
was gonna-
stepped out.
You might want to.
Amy
get
drove me
that
to a
looked at.
cheap motel until I
heard
could
it
find
pop.
another place.
It could be broken.
On the way to the motel, I told Amy the whole story.
This isn't
She was
over.
my sister and best friend. She knew I was telling the truth. I knew she would help watch Deb and the
Nice
kids.
guy.
Weeks
You
went by and
didn't
it
have
was
to hit him in
very
the
hard
face.
for me.
I'm not making.
I worked
things
overtime
easier
as
for
I
you
had
than
more
mine.
expenses to pay.
No.
I found a cheap guest house that I rented by the week.
Look, I appreciate
I
you
ate
trying to
mostly at a
help, but,
bar or a corner diner. I
gonna
met
get
with
to
a
sleep.
lawyer and, since I had no proof,
course.
simply asked for our marriage to be dissolved. He
You'll
told
send
me
me a
that Debbie
bill?
didn't want it, but would agree to
Send you a
anything
bill
I
first thing in
wanted.
the morning.
Everything was pretty much split 50-50.
Think I could
We
grab my
rented a
shirt?
house and she
Maybe I
just
can get
took
a
over the
refund?
payments.
Yeah, I'll get it for
Our
you.
savings were split in half, and she had to give me half the value of our stuff. I had to pay child support, which didn't bother me at all. I love my children and miss them terribly. The problem was that I also missed
Linda,
Debbie,
thank you.
but I
You're
knew it
welcome.
was over between us. I went to every
Again.
school function I could so I wouldn't
I'm sorry.
interfere with work. Both of our children had birthdays, and I went to them as long as I didn't have to be around Debbie's family. I made polite conversation with Deb, but whenever she wanted to talk about us, I
Sounds
left.
like you took care of two things.
I saw my kids every weekend and
Should've seen it,
occasionally
though.
during the week, depending on my work
He had
schedule.
this, like,
Deb probably
intensity
called
in
me
his
almost
eyes
every
that-
day up until the divorce.
and
If
the
she
way
wanted to
he
talk
hit
about the
Eric,
kids or household
Okay,
chores,
so
I listened.
he's a little dangerous.
When she wanted to
You could
talk
use a
about
little
us, I
danger
hung
in your
up.
life.
One day I
Especially
stopped
if it
by my
comes with a
sister's house for
six-pack.
dinner and played with the
Harry.
kids.
Okay, fine.
Amy told me that
At
Sandy was
least
still
you
sticking
know
to her
he's
story about
around
me
if
forcing
you
her to
pick
have
up some other
sex.
stalker.
He's not
She told me
around.
that Deb
He
was
did a
torn
job,
between what
and
Sandy
that's
said
the end
and
of
what
it.
I
mean,
said.
I doubt I'll ever even
I
see
tried
him
to
again.
explain to Amy that I had no proof, and
I
neither did
wouldn't
Sandy.
be too sure about that.
It was just my word against hers, and
Hi.
Debbie believed her.
Good afternoon.
That
How
was
can we
what hurt
help
the
you?
most.
Yes,
One afternoon when I was at my house, the phone rang.
hoping I could pick
It was
up a
the
few things
school.
from my place.
They told me that Kyle wasn't feeling
maybe
well and
a
asked
lamp,
if I could pick
brighten
him up.
things up a little bit.
Of course I agreed and went to pick him up.
You are
He had a
in
cold
luck
and was coughing.
because
Debbie
Linda
taught
here
middle school,
is
and I
our
called her to let her know I was
lamp
picking up
expert.
Kyle.
I'm sure
She
you'll
said
get a
she
lot
would
of
be
great
home as soon as she
suggestions from
could.
her. So
I took Kyle
I'll
home,
be back.
put him on the bed, and
Okay.
took his temperature.
Thank you.
thanks.
He had a slight fever, but nothing serious. About an hour later, Deb
Hi.
came home with Kyle. She quickly went in to see how Kyle was doing.
How did you know where
As
I
she went in
worked?
to see him, the phone rang.
I followed you.
I wasn't thinking when I answered the phone out of habit.
You told me
It was Sandy.
at my
What
office.
are you doing there? She asked.
You didn't really come here for a lamp.
Well,
you?
if it isn't a liar.
No,
Kyle was sick and I
didn't.
brought him
I-
home. Don't worry,
Actually,
you
I
ruined
came
the
to
marriage.
apologize.
I reached down and hit the record
For
button
what?
on the answering machine.
Thinking about it,
It
seems
was
like
the kind that
situation
recorded
you're having with
both
your
sides of the
house is
conversation.
a bit precarious.
Is he
and
all right?
What happened last night?
Why do you care?
Seems like I may have made your
You
life a little bit
separated
more
his
difficult.
parents. Why do you care about him?
He had it coming.
Look, Ray, this just got out of hand.
I feel like I owe you.
You knew we were swingers and Bob wanted a
Any chance
taste of my
you'll
little
let me take you to
sister.
dinner?
If you had had sex with me like I asked you to,
Are you
it
normally in the
never would
habit
have
of
gotten
asking
out
your
of hand.
clients out for dinner?
But no, you came
Most
home
of
and
my
started
clients are
fighting.
middle-aged lawyers, so they're not
You
really
told
my
Deb I
type.
raped you.
Technically,
And
you're
then
a
you made Bob rape
former
Deb.
client. I sent you a bill.
What
this
kind of
morning.
damn sister are you?
So what do you say?
Bob never raped her. She gave herself to him willingly.
Are you going to tell me
Hell,
more
she'd
stories about
probably
how much
go
you
along
love
with it
my
again if
designs
Bob tried.
and accuracy?
She was
I
drunk and you
think
put
I
all
learned
that
my
shit in
lesson
her
on that
head
one.
and then stood by
Then
while
dinner
your
sounds
husband
great.
did her.
Perfect.
The problem is, Ray, you
So I'll
can't
call you.
prove it.
Sure.
I told you from the beginning that she'd believe me over you, and now you know. If
I'm
you need
good
to
at
get
it.
laid, call me. Tell
You
Deb
too.
to call me later. I hope my nephew is feeling better. She hung up and I turned off the recorder. Debbie asked who had called, and I told her, "Your wonderful angel is a sister who will never lie to you." What did she want? I recorded her message and she said to call her back. Well, I'll see you in court Thursday. I guess we can call it a day of freedom. Don't forget to listen to the message, I said as I headed to my truck. After about 5 minutes, my cell phone started ringing again and again. It must have called me about 10 times before I got home. When I got home, my cell phone kept ringing. Finally, I picked up the phone. "Ray, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I just talked to Sandy and she told me the truth about not being raped." "That's good to hear, but it doesn't change anything in my mind.
Hello?
You slept with
Hey,
Bob and didn't even
it's
give
Tony.
me a chance to explain. After
don't
I
waste
told
any
you the
time, do
truth, you still chose your sister's
Life's too
story,
short to wait.
thinking I was a
like that.
rapist.
made
I want to tell you
reservations
one thing.
tonight.
I loved you and probably always
Well, you're
will.
very sure of yourself.
But I also hate you for what you did to
How do
our
you know I'm
family and
available?
for the distrust you harbored for
Are
me.
you?
On Thursday, I took
Depends.
2 days off work.
Where are you taking me?
I went to my
So,
attorney's office and signed my name to the divorce
exclusive
petition.
place.
I
I'm sure
wanted
you'll
to
like
leave before Deb
So I should dress
arrived.
formal.
I was
No.
extremely
No,
depressed as
strictly
I headed
casual.
to the neighborhood bar.
Serious?
Pick
I
you
was
up
already
at
setting up my drinks when I
7?
looked over and saw Bob walk in.
I'll be ready.
He didn't notice me as I walked up to
I'll
him
see
and
you
gave
then.
him a cold punch. When he went down, I hit him again and again. I got up and started kicking him until he was a mass lying on the floor. I bent over to kick him again when 3 guys pulled me away from him. I remember saying, "I hope you die in hell," and I kept kicking him until I was dragged away from him. The police officers threw me down on the floor, handcuffed me, and took me to the patrol car. This time I was taken to prison. I was allowed to make one phone call, so I called my sister Amy. I told her about what I had done and that she didn't have to post bail. It would be too expensive and I was going to serve my time. She cried when I hung up the phone. Debbie came to the prison to see me, but I refused to see her.
Thank you.
It took almost 2 months before my case went to court.
Come on.
I was
Table's
charged
ready.
with assault and I pleaded guilty. I was given 2 years minus time served. I asked Amy to take my few belongings and store them in the basement.
Where are we going?
She told me that Debbie was feeling very ill and wanted to see me. I told her I didn't want to see her. I know you don't want to hear this, but Deb really loves you. Her family is furious about what Sandy said about you. And there's something else you should know. Debbie never showed up to sign the divorce decree, so you're going to jail a married man. I went to prison, and it's not a place you want to live.
Hope this place
It was
is
like a
good
different
right here.
world.
Me too.
I got into fights all the time.
The scenery.
I had to prove myself to almost every group.
It's not bad.
I wasn't anybody's scapegoat. My cellmate was a life inmate named Killer. I think he came home one day, saw his wife having fun with another man, and destroyed them both.
Can I pour you some wine?
Please.
According to the documents, Keeler stabbed them about 80 times. He was hard to
So,
recognize. The year before, he had killed another inmate after he started fighting with him.
How'd you get
I
over
tried to
that?
hold on as long as possible, but the other prisoners
Well,
constantly questioned me.
Cheers.
In the first 2 months, I was taken
It's
to the
temporary,
infirmary
it's
twice because of
part-time
cuts.
Things sort of
Fights happened almost daily. I must have paid my tribute because after that I wasn't bothered as much. What's more, Killer even started talking to me. On Visitor's Day, I decided to go see my visitor. I thought it would be Amy or my father, but it was Debbie. What are you doing here? I asked.
And then
She looked
they
so
decided
sweet
they
and
had to
beautiful.
downsize.
I wanted to hug her, but I was playing Angry
So,
Ray.
we were let go.
Ray, I love you and I've made a lot of mistakes.
I can hear where your passion
I brought you some
is.
pictures from the kids. They miss you
Sounds
very
like
much,
you
and
really
so
love
do
it.
I.
Yeah, I do.
Tears
I really
streamed
do.
down her face.
I
Look,
mean,
I
ever
have a
since I was
different life
kid,
now.
I used to
Just take care of my
pour
kids and
interior
tell them I
design
love them.
books, you know.
She handed
All
me some
my
baby
friends were
pictures.
obsessing over the
They
latest
were their
teen
last
novel.
school pictures, and they looked so
It's
cute.
just not my style.
Ray, I didn't sign the
And then I met
divorce
Carrie in
papers.
college, and we made such a
I will
great
wait
team
for
that we
you.
kinda stuck
I don't
together.
care how long it takes. I made a
But
terrible, terrible
lately,
mistake,
things have
but I
been
know we can
a
get
little
through
rough.
it if you still love me.
Be patient.
I didn't know what to
It's only a matter
say.
of time for
Of
someone
course, I felt that I
recognizes
still
your
loved
talent.
her. I just hated
I mean,
what she had done.
I did.
And the fact that she didn't believe me. I got up and walked back to my cell. I left her by the window and didn't look
What about
back.
you?
I was working
You
in
know
the
what you
kitchen
do?
and overheard a conversation about a guy going after Killer for killing his friend.
Chasing the occasional stalker.
They were going to try to corner
It's hard
him in
to
the
know
dining
something
room the
like
next
that.
night.
But
There was no one I could tell about it
That's a
without
living.
being a snitch.
I'm good at
I
it.
decided to tell Killer. It would make me part of his
Trained
group.
to use, so
I didn't want to be part of
What
any
did you do in
group,
the army?
but I couldn't let this man die the next
can't really
day.
talk about it.
Killer wasn't sure whether to believe me.
Classified.
I told him to believe what he wanted to believe.
Really?
I didn't say anything to
No.
the guards, but to him, I guess I was taking a risk. The killer looked me in
I
the
was a
eye.
combat medic.
He said you can tell a lot about a person by
I knew
looking into
about
their
all
eyes.
the Carnage that was going
He told
on
me to
over
stay
there.
away from him the next day.
That maybe
He
I
would
can go
control
out.
the situation so that
Get
no
out
one would
now.
know that I had told him about it.
So you're good at healing
I
people,
couldn't
then?
believe what he had done.
Yeah.
He put 2 thin
Something
hardcover
like that.
books under his shirt, covering his kidneys with them. Behind him at another table sat 3 of his
Not so
group.
good at
When the
keeping
prisoner
yourself
came
out
up
of harm's
behind
way.
him and straddled Keeler's chest, he plunged the knife into his kidneys, but of course hit the book. Knives were
Sometimes
usually
there's
pretty
people worth
blunt.
putting yourself in harm's
They
way
pierced
for.
the skin but didn't go through the book. Killer's friends grabbed the prisoner and started beating him until the guards came to the table. The prisoner was taken to solitary confinement, and Keeler sat down again to finish his dinner. I cannot believe that he remained calm during the whole ordeal. After that day, Keeler talked to me on a fairly regular basis. When we talked in the cell, he was a completely different person than he was outside the cell. Outside the cell, he was as tough as could be. Everyone knew he was the leader of his group. He asked me about Debbie and the children. He told me that he had 3 grown children, but of course they never came to see him since he had killed their mother. He said that his youngest daughter, Angie, was on his side. She knew that her mother was the cause of the family problems. She wrote to him regularly, but he forbade her to come and visit. He didn't want other inmates to see her and possibly endanger her. I could tell he really loved his daughter. He smiled when he told me she was a lawyer. I told him my whole pathetic story about how Sandy had set me up and also set Debbie up. "Do you still love her?" Keeler asked me. "Yes, I think so, but at the same time I hate what she did to our family." "Does she still love you?" "She says she loves me, but I can't
So I woke
forgive
up
her."
this morning and found this in the glass.
"Why not?" Look where you are now. You've hit rock
No,
bottom,
it's
kid.
not a robbery.
If there was a woman in the world who loved me and said she'd wait for me, I'd be the happiest man in the world. What about mistrusting me, not trusting me, and having sex with another man? Hell, you killed a man and your wife for the same thing. And I regret it every day of my life.
He doesn't seem to
I
care for
regret
me
not
too
giving
much.
her a second chance and getting my family back. Don't get me wrong, Ray, don't hold a grudge.
Yeah.
It will kill you ever so slowly. He gave me something to think
do you
about.
think he could have done this?
Is he right?
What's his name?
What would I do when I got
I
out?
don't know.
I had no job, no future, and right now,
Her
no
name's Linda
family.
Marshall.
The next month, I had another visitor. Debbie came back. She smiled at me, and there were tears in her eyes.
I'll look into it.
The kids drew you some more pictures. She put them in the tray, and I looked at them. They showed a picture of Dad, Mom, and the 2 kids. I guess the kids still saw us as a family.
Oh,
They miss you, Ray.
For this morning.
God, I miss you. Will
Okay,
you ever
so
be
the
able to forgive
date
me?
went
And can we be a
well.
family again? I promise I'll do whatever it takes.
Fine.
I don't talk to
I
Sandy or
need
Bob
details.
anymore after what she did to us.
I need your help
I'm
here.
sorry for
I'm
not
out,
trusting
please.
you. I thought she didn't believe me once.
I'll be back.
So the next time someone says
Finish your
something,
thoughts in
she'll
the
probably
meantime.
believe them again instead of me.
Thorough and expansive.
Deb, I've been doing a lot of
complete
thinking.
narrative retelling of
I want to
everything
forgive
that
you, but I
happened.
don't know if I
Okay,
can.
I'm coming back. Okay,
Seeing you
okay,
with Bob, I
okay.
can't get it out of my head. Did you really like him? No, I hated it. That's why I threw up. When you walked in, I saw the look on your
Have your
face and I
moments?
felt sick.
Yes.
I realized what I did was
Detective,
wrong when I
sure.
saw you.
It won't take long.
Of course, I can never take it all back.
How are you?
God, I wish I could.
Fine.
I never would have done it if I hadn't
Have you
been so
heard any
drunk.
more from the
I
man
only
that was
want one
bothering
man,
you?
No.
and that's you, Ray,
Not since
the
the other
father of
day.
our 2 children. A
Perhaps he
couple
got
weeks
the hint
later, I
to
had another
leave you
visitor.
alone.
Amy came to see me.
Yeah, I hope so.
Ray, remember when I told you that Deb had stopped
Saw by your
seeing
place
Sandy?
This morning. Naturally, you were not there.
I was driving by the
identified you
house
here.
and saw Sandy and
Upon
Bob going
leaving,
into the
I
house.
observed a for
I don't know
sale
why they
sign
were
out
there, so
front.
I kept driving.
Is that because
I
of the
just
stalker?
thought you should know. I was
No.
confused again. Had
It's
Deb
a,
lied to me again? I was ready to forgive her and
a
try to make our
divorce
life work
thing.
again.
Oh,
I know Amy wouldn't lie to me. I had to find
Thank you
out
so much
why
for
Deb
checking
was
up on me,
seeing
Detective,
Susan and
but I
Bob
have a lot
again.
to do this morning, so.
Yes,
About a
of
month
course,
later,
of course. Just-
Killer and I
just-
got to
just
talking,
one
and he
more.
said he felt he owed me for what I had done for him.
This morning.
He said he had been a
Seems there was
lawyer
an
before
incident
prison and had some
involving your
connections.
ex-husband.
He was going to see if he could get me out of the
What
parole
kind of
program.
incident?
Oh, you haven't heard?
I didn't know whether to
No.
believe him, but he never lied to
Vandalism.
me. It may seem strange to
house.
say that about a criminal, but I
Yeah,
respected
someone
Killer.
smashed up.
I often
few
thought about what a
windows.
good lawyer he must have been.
It's terrible.
His speech and stature demanded respect.
I'm not sure.
I knew
what
it was
this
best not
has
to
do
ask
with
any
me.
questions about his statement.
Well, he's
I
of
took
the
him at his
impression
word.
That you
A
know
few
the
weeks later,
culprit.
I was called to the warden's office where the
Mentioned
parole
Deb.
board was meeting.
Boyfriend.
The first person to speak was the prison governor. Mister Harper,
No,
we have a parole application
Eric
for
is
you.
wrong.
I don't
About
know
which
who you're
one?
familiar with, but we've been asked to speak with you.
He was also
After
sporting
reviewing
a
your file,
broken
we saw that
nose.
you had a hard time
Said it was a
adjusting for the
separate
first
issue,
few
but
months.
Just curious.
Is that true? Yes, sir. I guess I wasn't cut out for prison life, but I tried to adapt. If you had gotten out earlier, where would you have lived, and how would you have survived?
In the police investigations is very serious.
I had to think
offense.
fast. I knew this was a make-or-break question.
Look,
Well, sir,
Eric
I have a
stormed
sister who is
into my
also my
house the
best
other night
friend.
looking for a fight.
She and her
and
husband
my
said that when I get released, I can
friend
live with them until
was
I get back
protecting
on my
me.
feet.
It was self-defense. He
Aren't
had
you married,
absolutely
Mr.
nothing
Harper?
to do with any vandalism.
Yes, sir, but
You
we
know
were in
where
the
he was last
process of
night?
divorcing when I was
Yes,
sentenced.
he was with me.
At this point, I'm
All
not
right.
sure how things are going to work out with him.
That's right.
I'm just trying to be honest with you.
All right. Well,
We thank
then
you
I
for
need
your
to speak with
honesty.
him regardless. So do you mind?
We
giving
knew
me
you had
his
broken
name?
up, and we wanted to see how honest you were with us.
Tony.
Sir, as for the job, my
Sarno.
previous employer said I was a good worker and to come to him when I was released.
So you ignored my advice.
I needed
What are
that
your
creep out
chances of
my
going
life,
back to
and
prison?
Tony got the job done.
We don't look
His
our
wife
best when a
then asked
convict
that
we
he
released early goes
Help
back
you
in.
with this problem.
I promise
He
you,
didn't
sir,
give
that
me
I
the
never
details,
want to see
and
those
I
prison
didn't
walls
bother to
again.
ask. All I know.
Go back to your
is
cell,
that
Mr.
he
Harper,
made
and
it
we'll get
happen.
back to you by the end of the month.
Look.
Yes, sir. And
my
thank you for at
personal
least
opinion
considering me
about
for
private
parole.
Investigators aside, I strongly
I went back to the
recommend
cell and Keeler
that you
asked
do
me how
not
it had
get
gone.
involved with Mr.
I
Sarno,
told him what I had told the
professionally or
council and
otherwise.
asked him if he had anything to
Why?
do with it.
And what do you know
You
about
never
him?
know, but if you're released
I know it's
early,
messy.
I'll expect a box of cigarettes
I know
a
it's
week to be
dangerous.
put on my account. He
You're just
laughed.
trying to scare me, Detective.
Trying to warn you.
Debbie came back a few days later and said
Tony
someone
Sarno.
from the parole board
It's
was
bad
in the
news.
house. Are you going to be paroled? She asked. What did they want?
Well, thank you
What
for
did
the
they say?
advice.
I asked nervously.
I do really need to get back to work.
How are we
Of course.
settling in and will you be able to live there? I told them we broke up,
Well, thank
but
you for
I'd
your
love
time.
to have you back. she said rather
Thank you,
nervously.
Detective. Have a good day.
I changed the subject. You told me you stopped seeing Sandy. Have you been seeing her? She's my sister. I don't see her that often. I interrupted her. And Bob, have you seen him lately? Why are you asking me these questions? She did look nervous. You can't be trusted. You said you wouldn't see Sandy, but she and Bob were in the house. Did something happen with you and Bob again? Is that why you're worried about parole? Tell your damn lover, Bob, that when I get out, I'll finish work. And if you're having fun with him in the meantime, I'll take care of you too.
Police.
What for?
Deb jumped up and ran out of the
Apparently,
visitor's room.
someone vandalized Eric's
I knew my
house.
thoughts were right. I was ready to go back to the same
Couldn't
damn
happen to a nicer
situation
guy.
that had brought me here in the first place.
Yeah, you didn't have anything
I had
to do
no
with that,
intention
did
of
you?
killing anyone. I just wanted to give them a
Of
good
course not.
scare. I called
think
my
so.
sister Amy and she came over to see me. I told her about the
Well, I
conversation
didn't,
with
but,
Deb, and she said she felt
Detective
really
Groves
sorry for me.
Seems to think that you
She said the
did.
parole board came to see her, and she told them
Said
I
that
could
he's
stay
had
here as
some
long as I
prior
needed
dealings with
to.
you.
Her husband Kenny was there, and he said I was welcome there. Do you know if they called
Tony?
Mr. Parker about my job?
I'm here.
Yes, that's right.
Groves,
And he said you could go
no.
back to your old job. You were one of the best
Well, he doesn't
workers.
seem to have the highest opinion of you.
Gosh, Amy, you've given me hope.
Cops look down on my line of
I
work.
hope I don't get rejected.
He's one of them.
It won't.
Yeah,
They
well, I know
told me that
you don't
since
really
you have a
like
place to
police
live
getting
and a
involved
job,
in your
you'll
work.
probably be released
So I
at the
just wanted
first
to
of
let
the
you know
month.
that I had to give him your name.
She began to
It's
cry.
okay.
Amy was right. I got a call saying I would be released next week.
Finishing up some work, so
I was given the name of the lawyer who would be handling my case. I was to
Don't worry
report to
about
the
it.
agency first thing after my
Alright.
release. I didn't understand
Thanks.
why I had to meet with an attorney and not a parole officer.
Sounds good.
I was told that the law firm was the one that arranged my release. They were supposed to meet with me, fill out my forms, explain my parole situation, and then send me to a parole officer. I thanked Killer and he reminded me about the cigarettes. I told him they were coming. Honestly, I don't know if he had anything to do with my parole, but it was worth a box of cigarettes a week just to be free. When I went outside the gate, my sister Amy
Looks
was
like it's
standing there
locked.
crying. I hugged her and gave her a brotherly kiss. Welcome back, brother. I walked into Amy's house and her husband greeted me. I realized that I was very welcome there. Of course, I asked about Debbie, and Amy told me after talking to her in jail that she had
I'm sure
contacted
you
a
know
lawyer
why I'm
and signed the
here.
papers to finalize the
Where's
dissolution of the
Marshall
marriage.
filled me
It
Seems
seems
like
my
there's
thoughts
some
about
sort of
Deb were
trouble with
correct,
her
but now I was a
in.
free man.
Ex-husband.
What's your
I knew I had to go to
relationship with
Deb's
Marshall?
house and make an appointment to see the kids.
Started out professional.
I called first to make sure she was
Become a little more
home.
personal.
I didn't want any big
But how is this
surprises
relevant
and to
to
end
your
up back in
investigation?
jail. I tried to
Well, the
explain to
police
her that I
department
wasn't
like to
coming over to
examine
cause
a
trouble.
little thing called
We could even
motive.
talk on the porch.
Perhaps you've heard of it.
I just wanted to make arrangements
Let
to
me
see
help
the
you
kids
out.
on a regular basis.
I did not vandalize.
She agreed to see me, but
Mr.
said she would
Marshall's
call
home.
the police if I
Yes,
started
told me
making a
that.
disturbance. When I
She also
pulled up to
told
the
me about
house,
a
my
little
children ran up to me screaming,
argument
"Daddy,
you guys
Daddy, you're
had."
back!" I grabbed
don't
them
look
and
quite
hugged
as
them. God, I missed
banged
them
up as he
so
does.
much. I talked to them for a
Luckily
few
for me, he's
minutes
got a really
and told them to
slow
ride their
ride-up.
bikes, and my
luckily for
mom
you,
and
he's
I
not
would sit on the
pressing
porch and watch them.
Self-defense.
What do you want, Ray? You've made it
Always
clear
have
that we're
answer for
never going to be a
everything,
family again.
Try to.
We're moving on with our lives.
Look.
Debbie, these are
a guy
my
like
children
that,
too, and I want them to be a
I'm
part
sure
of my
he's bound
life.
to have collected a lot of enemies.
I was ready to forgive you, but
If
you
you look
lied
at
to me
all,
again. You
sure
just
you'll
had to
find
go
a
back to
handful.
Bob and Sandy.
But if you
I know
just
what kind
stop,
of people they are and who they
I'm
socialize
always
with.
here, willing to help.
Ray, you were in
For a fee,
prison
of
and I was
course.
lonely. Don't mess with my head!
You know, how about
I know you slept together. I don't care who you're having fun
How about
with.
we stop with the game?
Shove goddamn Bob up your ass if you haven't already.
See, I know it was you.
I'm
so
here to
I-
tell you that if I find out that my children are subjected to this
bothered by
perverted
you
lifestyle,
broken
I will do
windows.
everything in my
But I'm
power to
getting
take
a
them
very
away from you.
distinct sense of
Do
deja
you
vu
understand?
here.
This
And
is
you
not just an
continue on
empty
this path.
threat. My
And
children
I'll
mean a
have you
lot to me,
behind bars
and I want them to
faster
have a
than
good
you
life.
can blink.
Ray, I would
And there'll
never
be no
do anything to hurt my
technicalities.
children.
To get in my way
Already.
this
You
time.
ruined our family because of damned Bob. I'm going to make sure
I
my kids stay
appreciate
away
the
from
heads
people
up,
like that.
Detective.
Tomorrow I will meet with my
But if
new
you're not
lawyer
here
and
to
find
charge
out what
me
my
with
rights
something,
are. I don't trust or believe
There's
you
the
anymore.
door.
You showed me your true colors. I left you, but we have 2 children and I will make sure they grow up in a good environment.
Oh,
I promise you,
one more
Ray,
thing.
I won't get sucked into that lifestyle.
What happened to Miss
Yes, I've
Marshall's
tried it.
Stalker?
I admit it, but it's not for me or my kids. You'll
You
see.
must have seen all the boys
I've
in the
changed.
loop prowling around.
I don't
You
trust
scared
you,
me.
and remember, actions speak louder
Nice
than
work,
words.
Detective.
My kids came over and I talked to them about school and what they were doing. I told them that I was living at Aunt Amy's, but that I would soon find an apartment closer and spend more time with them. I kissed and hugged them goodbye and headed back
Look,
to
whatever this
Amy's.
is,
Where's your boyfriend?
The next morning, I went to the law
Tony
firm
had
that
nothing to do
represented
with your
me.
house.
The hell he didn't.
Going there felt
If you keep
strange.
harassing me, I'm filing
I hadn't
restraining
even
order.
talked to the lawyer who had
Look at
gotten
my
me
face.
parole.
Do you know how
I
embarrassing
went to the
it is to go into
receptionist
work
and
like
pulled
this?
out the card I
Try
had
that
been
on
given by the
yourself.
parole board.
Okay, be reasonable for a
May I
second.
speak to Mr. AJ?
You're
Brady,
costing me
please?
my career.
I have an
I
appointment.
lost 2
I'm Ray
major
Harper.
clients yesterday.
The
Tell me you're
receptionist
gonna
smiled
sell
at
the
me.
house.
A miss. Brady will see you shortly.
Fine,
Please
I'm
have a
done
seat,
with you.
Mr. Harper.
What does that mean?
I asked myself
That
if she
means I'm
said
going to
miss.
sue you. And when my
Brady.
attorneys are done, you're going to
The
have
card
nothing.
said
No money,
AJ.
no house, no
Brady.
nothing.
So I
Can't
assumed
do
it was a
that,
man.
Eric.
Watch me.
I was sitting there pondering when a beautiful woman in a dark blue suit walked up to me. She had a
Excuse me.
smile, dimples, and shoulder-length dark brunette hair.
Linda, did
I
you
couldn't
see
help
what
but
just
stare at
happened?
her as
No,
she
I
held
don't-
out her hand
That
to
guy
greet
just
me.
ran off with one of the antique watches.
Ray Harper, I presume,
so sorry.
she said,
Why was your
extending her
husband
hand
here
for a shake.
again? Another personal issue?
I'm AJ.
No, I'm so
Brady.
sorry, Bob. It'll never happen
I
again.
know we
Go
haven't
home,
met
Linda.
yet, but I've been
At this
asked to
point, you're
look
just
into your...
costing me
How
money.
shall I put this
Are you
situation?
firing
And
me?
I've come to
You
the
can clean
conclusion
all your
that you didn't
things.
have a fair defense,
Bob,
and we'll
I-
talk about the rest. If you'll step into my office, please. Mary, I don't want to be disturbed. Please take messages to all calls and tell them I will call them back. Yes, Miss Brady, the receptionist replied. I followed her into her office.
what are you doing here?
If she had asked me to,
Here,
I would have
having a
followed
lazy
her into
day.
the abyss.
Thought I'd come
She was a
surprise
very beautiful
Well, I
woman.
appreciate that, but
Well, Mr.
it's not
Harper,
really
we
the
meet
time.
at last.
you. Are you sure? Came all
Please
this
call me
way.
Ray if you don't mind.
I appreciate that.
I
just,
owe you my life, and I have
need to be
no
alone. I
idea
need
why
some
you did it,
Time to think.
Mr. Harper.
Is there
I
anything
mean,
can do
Ray,
to help?
a good friend of mine asked me to look into your case.
I need to do this on
Your
my
lawyer
own.
let you plead guilty instead of trying to help
Thank you, though.
You had a lot of extenuating circumstances that he never mentioned. You had just signed the divorce papers. The person who caused your divorce came to the place where you were. You were not in your right mind at the time. These and other factors would have gotten you a lesser sentence. Of course you committed assault, but the sentence was too harsh. I pointed that out to the parole board, and they agreed with me to some extent. I asked, why, Miss Brady? Why me? Who asked you to help me? Can I call you anything other than Miss Brady? After all, I feel like you saved my life and gave it back to me. Look, Ray, I was asked to help you, and I did.
What
Is
are
it
you-
really that important
why
that you
are
know who hired
here?
me? As for my name, I guess you can call me AJ.
Ow!
I became friends with a man in prison.
Ow! Stop!
They called him Killer.
Does this
He told me
make
he
you
would help me
angry?
get parole.
What?
He also
you
told me that he had a favorite
Yes,
daughter
please
named
get off
Angie,
me, please,
and that she
please,
was a
please.
lawyer. I wondered if you were the beautiful daughter he was talking
Fight
about.
back.
Get
My
off
new
me
attorney's
now.
eyes glistened. She looked at me eye to eye and said,
Fight back. 'cause
Yes,
you're too
Keeler.
weak.
I mean Dave. My father's
off
name
me.
is Dave, and he asked me to handle your
Make
case.
me.
He's never asked me to do that before, so he must have really liked to. I was surprised when he asked, but for my father's sake,
Stop
I'd do
this
anything.
Now get off me.
AJ, can I call you Angie? I know we just met, and you're my lawyer, but you're too pretty for me to call you AJ. And I definitely don't want to call you Miss Brady. What does AJ's even mean? Angelina Juanita Brady is my name. Now you know why I chose
For
AJ.
you.
Listen,
That
Ray,
doesn't
there are a
have to feel
few things
better.
we need to discuss.
To fight back.
Would you have lunch with me? I asked.
Linda, you're a stronger woman.
Ray,
than
I don't
you
meet with
know.
clients.
You think the world
It's not
is
a date,
pushing
it's
against
lunch.
You, and you know what? Maybe it is.
I have to go to work in a
It
couple
hurts
hours,
me
and I need to
watch
eat.
you not
If you don't
push
want to call it a
back.
date, you can pay for it and call it a business
You
meeting.
can take control of your
You
life
do take
again.
clients to lunch sometimes, don't you? Angie
Do you
smiled and
mind?
big dimples appeared on her face.
Maybe.
No wonder Daddy liked
A little
you.
bit.
Yes, I take clients to
sorry.
lunch and eat.
I am.
Now I'll tell Mary we're leaving and
I
then we
didn't
can
hurt
go
you,
out to
did I?
lunch. I watched her get up.
Good.
She was a very pleasant
Somehow
looking
you
woman.
find your strength.
She had looks and character that you don't
Maybe
often
this wasn't
find in a
the best
lawyer.
approach, but
We went to lunch and went into a very nice,
sorry.
quiet restaurant. After ordering lunch,
Wanna
she
go?
told me about meeting my parole officer.
Wait,
She said he was a pretty decent person,
Where are you going?
but I would have to follow the rules and stay out of trouble.
I don't know.
I was to meet with him twice a month for a few months and then once a month for the rest of the year. Angie, you know everything about me. Will you tell me something about yourself? Ray, I don't think it would be appropriate to talk to you about my personal life. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I love looking at your dimples when you smile. Ray, please, I told you I don't date clients, but thanks for the compliments. She couldn't help but blush. Tell me about your legal
Going
education.
somewhere?
It's a business. I have a right to know that as a client. She tried to
Look
hold
at
back
you.
a smile. Okay, Ray, I have a law degree that I
James
got from the
Clown, the other
university
side
on
of
a
town.
scholarship. I've been an attorney for several years now. My specialty is criminal law.
How you feeling?
Lunch came and we ate.
Okay.
I couldn't help it. Angie was on my mind. Will I see you again, Angie?
Thank you for being
You'll
here.
actually have to come back next week to fill out the
I
paperwork
don't
you
just
get
mean
from your
today.
parole officer. Why don't we have lunch
You're a really
again?
good person.
I'll even buy you a treat.
I'm happy you think so.
I noticed she softened a little.
Can I ask you something?
Okay, but this lunch is just to discuss business.
Why does Groves
couldn't help
have
but
a
smile.
problem with you?
After lunch,
I
we
mean,
went back to
it's
the office.
Not just your profession.
When she
you
held
two
out her
clearly
hand to
have
say
history.
goodbye, I held it in both of
Yeah.
my hands for a few seconds.
Our
I
paths
wondered
have
what she was
definitely
thinking.
crossed.
I hoped she didn't think I was some
What
kind of
happened?
freak. We said goodbye, and I
There's
told
not
her I was
really much to
already looking
tell.
forward to lunch next week.
Huh?
Her secretary
I'd like to
took
hear.
one look at her and smiled. I
A
guess
woman
clients
hired
don't
me
see their
to find
attorneys that
proof of her
often.
husband's infidelity.
But then again, most attorneys weren't like Angie. I went
want
back
his
to
name
work
is
and it was
Julie
really
Beckett.
great. In no
I
time
did
at
my
all, I
job.
got my work done.
She was
I
about
guess
to
it's like
file for
riding a
divorce,
bike.
and her husband killed her.
You just get on and start
He
riding.
skipped town.
Most of the
Groves
guys I
opened
used to
an
work with were still there. It was like they had a newfound respect for me.
Oh, why does he think that you're
Nobody
some
was
kind of
messing
threat?
with me.
Because he's bad at his
The next
job.
2 Mondays in a row, I had an
How
appointment
so?
with Angie. She was trying to
While I was
maintain a
keeping tabs
business
on Julie's
relationship,
husband,
but I wanted to learn
discovered
more
that he was
about her.
also abusing her.
On the 4th week of our
So I confronted
communication,
him.
she told me
Tried
that we
to
had ended our
intimidate
business
him.
relationship. Are you still my
He
lawyer?
responded
I
by
asked.
shooting her. And
Of
then
course,
skipped
if you
town.
have any problems, all you have to do is
Groves
call
was
me,
on his trail
she
for
said.
weeks, but when he hit a dead end, he was
Angie,
convinced
I'm
that
afraid I
put
have
him
to
to the
fire
ground.
you. I'm very
And
sorry.
then he started following some crazy
What?
tip about a body being
Fire me.
buried at the
What in
old
God's
painting
name has gotten
factory.
into you?
You know, the one at the
I
edge
helped
of
you get
town?
out of jail and didn't charge you with anything,
Groves tore that
and you
place
want to
top
fire me?
bottom for days.
Yeah,
His
you said
lieutenant
you weren't
finally
going
had to
out
pull
with
him
your
off the
clients,
case, but
and I
Groves-
want to have a real date with you.
He just couldn't let
I
it
want to
go.
take you out to a real dinner and maybe
And
a
the husband
dance.
never turned up.
I want to really get to know you.
No.
I know I'm an ex-con and a factory worker, but I want to get to know you better. I think you
Hey,
do
you
too.
can't blame yourself
Because
for
for
what
the last
happened.
3 weeks, I could have
It's
been
hard
making
not to
phone
blame
calls to get the
myself.
information you asked for. I think you want to see me
I
too.
meddled and
Ray, I'm sorry, I don't know
Julie
what to
got
say.
killed.
Yes, I'm a little attracted to you, but this is all about ex-convicts and laborers, isn't it? You don't think we should be
All right,
together?
look, I gotta get out
No,
of here.
no, that's not it at all.
I'll call you later.
You're my client, I'm your lawyer. What will people think? Who cares? Just come with me once. If you don't like it, you'll know not to go again. Follow your heart. Come with me Saturday night. Look, I know I just got out of jail and I've been locked up for a while. I don't know where this is going, but I want to give it a chance.
You're beautiful.
Oh God, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'll go once.
Just tricks.
I'll tell you right now, don't try to get me to sleep with you. Oh God, I can't believe I said that, Angie replied. That Saturday we went for a drive. I borrowed a car from my sister. I didn't want to drive Angie in my old truck. She gave me her address and it was a townhouse. I knocked on her door and when she answered, I saw the most gorgeous woman. I know that all men see women differently. In my eyes, she looked stunning and beautiful at the same time. I wanted to grab her and hug her right then and there. I knew I had to be a gentleman, but it wasn't easy. We went to a fancy restaurant and ordered wine and then dinner. After dinner, we decided to talk for a while listening to music. Angie, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Thing about all this.
You must have been married because your last
you
name
really
is
have nothing
different
to
from your
tie you down here.
father's.
Not that
Please
the
tell me
antique
about
store was
yourself.
really holding you back.
You know my life like a book.
Yeah, I guess so.
Ray, my dad and mom didn't get along very well.
Unless.
Of course, you know how that ended.
Unless.
Dad's been in prison for
Unless
14
there's a
years now.
certain private
My
eye
brother
who
and
sunk
sister
his
and I
teeth
were
into
raised
you.
by aunts and uncles. I'm the youngest and I was 14 when all this happened. It was very hard on all of us. My brother and sister have never forgiven my father.
Wait,
They love
what
him,
do you mean an
but they
attempt
just
on
can't
his life?
forgive him.
I mean, he went out to his
I knew my
driveway
mom was
last
cheating
night
on
his
him and I
car
told him about it.
exploded.
I argued with my mom,
Jesus.
but she said I was just a kid
Thankfully,
and
he
didn't know what I was
using a remote
talking about.
starter.
She said that someday I would really
Where
learn
is
about
he?
life.
Is he hurt?
Then I told my
Shame
dad
of
about
that.
it.
Aside from that,
2
he's
weeks
fine.
later, he caught her with another man.
As
I partly
Marshal,
blame myself.
I need you to tell him who
If
we're
I had
told
kept
he's
quiet,
is.
this might
Are
not
you
have
accusing
happened.
him of this too?
Angie,
really
you don't know
know
that.
anything about him, do you?
You're
I
not
know he was a
responsible for
combat
your
medic.
mom's death
That's
or
what he
your
told
dad's
me.
imprisonment.
Is that not true?
They were adults,
still have his
and you were a
service
child
record
trying to
on
do the
file.
right thing.
Sure.
After my
He started
father was
off
sent to
training
prison,
to be a
I
combat
decided
medic,
that I would go to
but then he
college
went
and
for
try
his
to become a
airborne
lawyer, and maybe I could
qualification,
help my
ended up
father
passing
get a
the
lighter sentence.
Special Forces selection
That's why I
course.
chose criminal
Spent the
law.
remainder of his career
Of course,
with a
there wasn't much room for
counter-terrorism
maneuvering in my
group.
father's case.
You know what his role was.
He was a brilliant lawyer himself and told me he was proud of me,
EOD
but there wasn't much I could do to
leader.
help him.
What's EOD?
Have you been married before, or is it none of my business?
Ordnance
I asked
disposal.
Angie. Both.
And those guys,
I wasn't married
they know a
long,
thing or
and it's
two
none of your
about
business.
car bombs.
She smiled at me when she said that.
Is that
Ray,
why
can we
you
talk
blame
about this
him
some other
for
time?
The Judy Beckett incident?
I don't want to ruin this evening. I'm having a good time with you.
So he told you that Tony is
Would you like to dance?
Did he?
I have 2 left
You want
feet, but
another
this will
real
give
one?
me a chance to hug you.
What do you mean?
We stood
Taylor
up and I
didn't
had
have
the
the way he
band
likes
play a
to
few
tell it.
slow numbers in a row. I took Angie
Sort
in
of
my
a
arms and we
sleeping
twirled
with
into
that
a
woman.
dance. I held her close to me
See,
and
Mr.
breathed
Beckett
in the scent of
hired
her
him to
hair.
investigate his wife.
Ray, you should know that
Sorta
I don't
got
go
too
on dates
close.
very often.
Beckett found out
Because
he
of the people I
attacked his wife
socialize
and
with,
sort
I have a
of
pretty big distrust
went
of
for
men.
blood.
I'm just trying to be honest with you. If my
They
dad
sorta
hadn't
went to
sent you to
take
me, I
Beckett
probably
out.
wouldn't be here
And the
today.
wife got caught in the crossfire.
I'll send your father an extra pack of cigarettes. Angie, you're the nicest
he
thing
told
that's
me.
ever come my way.
And I'm guessing
I'll
he
do
didn't tell
anything
about
to
the
make you
little girl
trust
either,
me.
did he?
If I step out of
Yeah.
line, just tell me and I'll back off.
Poor little thing probably saw the whole
When I
thing
took her
go
home
down
that night,
and
I kissed her at the
ran
door.
off scared.
After that, she
and
just
alone.
stared at me.
Found
She
her
leaned forward and kissed
a
me
week
again.
later.
Can I come in,
She was
Angie?
struck by a truck on the highway.
No, Ray, too soon, not today.
Yeah.
Will we see you
So
again,
that
say,
girl
next Saturday?
died. Nick is a sore
That
now.
might be possible.
And then he staged the
Call
whole
me
thing
Thursday.
perfectly. Made it look like the
I came home
husband
a very happy
went
man.
on a rampage and murdered
We met the
his
following
wife.
Saturday and the one after that.
We never
She
did
told
find
me
the
more
husband.
about herself.
My
Ray,
guess is
I
that
want you to know more
he's
about me if
rotting
we're going to
away in a
keep
ditch
dating.
somewhere.
I'm not
Can
going to
you
hide
prove
anything from
any
you.
of this?
I'm not cut out for this.
If I could,
Like I told you before, I've been married
Sorta would
before.
already be in the middle
It was
of
my
a
freshman
life
year of
sentence.
college. My boyfriend and I decided we loved each
I don't
other, and
understand.
of course we made love. I got pregnant and we decided
I
to get
get it,
married.
I really do.
We went to a
He's
justice of the
charming,
peace
he's
and he married us.
protective.
Soon
But
we
he
both
doesn't know
realized that our
within his
marriage had
heart, and the
failed.
law
We were
means
too
nothing
young.
to him.
I had a miscarriage.
And
My
now-
husband and I talked it over, realized we had made a mistake, and
Now he's got his
divorced.
sights set on you.
I kept the last name
He
Brady
sees
because
your
my father said I had to do it
ex-husband
to
as a threat,
distance me
Miss
from his
Marshall,
last
and
name,
he's not
Miller.
gonna stop until
Of
Eric
course,
is out
that
of
was my
the picture.
maiden name.
I've
I
seen
was
it
so
happen
pleased
before.
that she finally confided in me.
I'm not gonna let it
She
happen
asked me
again.
about my kids, and I told her they wanted to meet her.
So
I
if you
mentioned
know
that
where
I had
he
told
is,
them about her, and my daughter kept asking to meet her.
That would be a good time to tell him.
Angie, would you like to meet my sister and my two
I don't
kids?
know.
We're having a family barbecue,
I really
and you're
don't.
invited. It's next week, Saturday. I knew it would be a
He
huge step
contacts
for
me
us
or
if she
you.
agreed to come.
Please let me know.
Meeting my family was the
Immediately.
first step in us
Yes.
becoming closer. She
Thank
looked
you both.
anywhere but at me. I knew she realized this was a big step.
Thank you.
She took a very deep breath and looked into my eyes. Then she leaned forward and kissed me. It was the first time she had ever kissed me like that. Pulling away, she took another deep breath. Okay, Ray, count me in. What can I get you? I had no idea what women did at parties like this. I told her that I would
It's him
ask
again.
Amy to call her. When I told Amy about Angie coming to the family party, the number of family
You know,
members
there
who were
is
going
still
to
a
attend
chance that the
increased.
detective was wrong about all
They
this.
all wanted to meet the
Mom,
new
you
woman
don't
in my
believe
life.
that.
My mom and dad showed
Neither do
up,
I.
as well as several cousins,
I
aunts,
just I
and
don't
uncles.
understand how I
Angie
didn't
said she
see
would make
any of
potato
this. I mean, how
salad.
could it be so stupid?
I remember Amy telling me how sweet
Stop
Angie's
beating
voice
yourself
sounded
up,
when she
okay?
called her.
It's not your fault.
I think she was hoping something
I
would
didn't
happen
see it
between us.
either.
Yeah,
I knew it
well,
was.
you weren't sleeping with him.
I stopped by Deb's house every weekend to pick up my kids. I would drop them off at Amy's or we would go somewhere. They were fun to be with. I asked them about their mother, but
Trying to
always
be a
tried to do
guardian
it
angel.
politely. Kyle told me that their mom was dating a man.
Not helpful.
This worried me at first,
But it's
but then
true.
Kayla told me that it was a school teacher.
And hey, at least you know
His
it's not
name
gonna
was
hurt you.
Pat.
How?
He taught health classes and was the
How do I
soccer
know that?
coach.
I mean, he could be a psychopath.
I asked Deb about him, and she said, I told you
So
I was
one
trying to
thing
turn
to
my
do.
life around. Pat is a
You
good
have
guy.
to break it off.
His wife died of leukemia 2 years ago. He moved here to start
What
over.
if he tries something
He has a
when I
15-year-old
break it
daughter,
off?
and Kyle and Kayla like her. I want to tell you one thing, Deb.
Okay.
Your lies
what
and
you do.
cheating have ruined our
You
relationship.
break up by phone.
If you care
not
about this man,
face-to-face.
treat him right, and above all,
and then
be
you
honest with
hide
him.
out for a few weeks.
Don't mess things up the way you did between us. Pat loves our children and treats them well. He knows about you and realizes that you are their father. I hope everything works out for us. I hope I haven't ruined it for you and all the women. You're a good man, Ray, and I know you'll
You're
find
right.
the right woman. I'm just sorry I caused you so much
Yes,
pain.
I am right.
I said goodbye and
of
drove home.
course I'm right. When
I
am
found
I
a small
not right?
apartment about a mile from the house where Deb and the kids live.
Okay.
I found a
Except for the
2-bedroom
time I
apartment
told
so the
you
kids
to
would have a
date
place to
the
stay when they
crazy
were with
private
me.
investigator.
I still
Okay.
stop by Amy's a couple times a week, usually to eat, but I like to visit them too. When the day of the barbecue came, I was on edge. I stood outside
Would
and waited
you
for
come
Angie to
with me?
show up. I was greatly relieved when her car pulled up. She
never-
smiled at me and held out a bowl.
I never considered it.
Potato salad, and you better eat
Consider
some.
it now.
She
I mean, what's
smiled at
holding
me.
you back?
She looked beautiful.
Nothing.
I don't think she could look bad in my eyes. I felt so good when I was
Nothing's
around
holding
her.
me back.
I knew I had fallen in love with her,
Okay.
even though we never did more than
I
kiss.
think we just decided
Some things
to
you just know.
move together.
I just hoped she had some feelings for me too. I introduced her to everyone as my good friend.
Yeah.
When I introduced her to Mom and Dad, she smiled and hugged each of them. Dad said right in front of her, "Don't miss her, Ray. We already love her and we don't even know her."
Beginnings.
Angie looked at me and smiled.
New beginnings.
I took that as positive feedback. When I introduced her to Amy, they both looked at me. "Ray, I never told you, but I met your sister when I was interviewing people for your parole. I didn't tell you because the subject never came up until now. I never imagined we would become friends. I told you I would never lie to you. That's why I'm telling you this now. Amy and I
Think we
hadn't
should take
spoken
both
since
cars,
parole
or,
until she called me about the potato salad.
I actually wanted to sell
Is there
my
anyone
house.
else
Sure,
you've
that's
talked
actually
to that
a
I
great
should
idea.
know about?"
Yeah.
We should find a place to stay before we start
"Yes,
going out.
Deb, your ex-wife Sue, and of course Bob. I talked to your boss at work to make sure you would have a job. With the people who witnessed the
Linda,
bar
come on,
fight,
I know that
and of
you're
course
here.
the police who arrested you.
The lights
I did
are
all
on.
of this as your attorney. I never imagined I'd fall in love with you. After all, we'd never met. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about all of this, but I really shouldn't have told you about all of this. You were my client, and I needed to find out the truth before I could be behind you. If you want me to leave, please tell me and I'll leave." Leave?
You please
Leave?
open the door.
You just said you were in love with me, and that's all I heard. I grabbed her and kissed
No.
her, then hugged her and introduced her to the
What's
rest of the
happening?
family. I told
I
Angie
think
I'd
we
be
need
back
to
in a few
spend
minutes.
some time apart.
I had to pick up the kids. They were dying to meet her. When I got back,
Where's this
Kayla came
coming
over
from?
and
Just
introduced
yesterday
herself
we
to
had an
Angie.
amazing day. Why?
Okay, stop.
Hi.
The charade.
I'm
All right.
Kayla.
What charade?
Are you Daddy's girlfriend? You're really pretty,
Eric's
just like
car
Daddy said.
exploded last night.
Hi, Kayla.
I'm
You
telling
can call
I
me
have
Angie or
absolutely
AJ.
No idea.
You're a very pretty girl.
Why would somebody?
It's really nice
blow
to
up
meet
his
you.
car?
Okay, stop lying
Kayla said,
to me.
"Come and meet my older brother. He's 10 years old and he's afraid
Like
of
you lied
girls."
to me about Julie
"Kyle,
Pickett.
this is AJ, Daddy's friend." I saw Kyle shaking Angie's hand. She knelt down to talk to the kids on their level. I could tell by the way the three of them were talking that
Did
they were
Groves
going to
tell you
become
that?
friends. I walked over and joined them.
Well, it's true, isn't it?
"We like her, Daddy. She's
You
so
got her
pretty and
killed.
sweet,"
not.
Kyle told me, who was not known for being talkative.
Yes.
Again, Angie just
It
looked
did
at me
lie
and
to you.
smiled. The barbecue was
It
great.
didn't happen.
Toward the end of the evening, I was talking to
Exactly the way
Angie
that I
when
said
Kyle
it
and
did.
Kayla came up to us. "Dad, remember how you said we were going to go to the amusement park in 2 weeks? Can Angie come
If
with
you
us?
found out
Then when Kayla and I go on the rides, you'll have someone to talk
that I
to."
had an affair with her,
I tried to
was
explain to
afraid that
Kyle
you would
that
push me
questions
away
like that
just like
should
you
be
are
asked
right
in
now.
private. Maybe Angie had other plans, or
But I
maybe
didn't
she didn't
kill
like
anyone.
amusement parks. He looked at
Julie's
Angie and
husband came after
apologized
me
to
with a
her.
gun,
"Sorry, Angie, I didn't realize you didn't like amusement
and
parks."
Julie stepped in the way.
Angie started laughing. She knelt down and said to Kyle, "Honey, what
She
your
died
daddy
in my
means is
arms
that
and
you
she
should
ran
ask him
away.
those kinds of
And I
questions in
haven't
private,
seen him again
not
since,
me.
and that is the truth.
As for amusement parks, I love them and would
How
love
can
to
I
go there
believe
if it's okay
anything
with
that
your
you tell
daddy.
me?
Maybe you and I can ride the roller coaster
to kill your
together."
ex-husband.
Needless to say, we all went to the amusement
Well, you
park
have
and the kids
explosive
rode everything they
experience.
could get their hands on.
Another lie.
Angie kept her
didn't
promise
lie
to
about
Kyle
that.
and rode the roller coaster with him. She
She
also
left
rode
that
the
part
Ferris
out.
wheel with Kyle.
You
On
really
the way
wanna
home,
hear
Kayla said to
about
me,
everything that I did in the
"Dad,
army?
you have to buy a car instead of your
Anybody
truck.
can learn to blow a gas
You
tank
can't
on
expect
line.
Angie to use her car all the time because we all won't fit in your truck." That made Angie and I laugh,
I'm sorry.
but the girl was
I
right.
can't trust you anymore.
Over the next couple of weeks, I
Hey,
didn't see Angie
they're on their
much.
way.
I had to work a couple weekends and she was busy in court. We talked on the phone a couple times, but it wasn't the same.
You called the police.
One Saturday, I picked up the kids and we decided to go to
On
Chuck
me.
E. Cheese's. It was a pizza place for kids. Besides pizza, there were all kinds of games where you could win tokens and get
You're
little
making a
prizes.
mistake, Linda.
We were already at the house when Kayla asked me if she could call Angie and ask her to come with us. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I said I would call Angie. I called out, "Angie, it's Ray." Kayla asked me to call you. "What are you doing tonight?" "Oh, hey, Ray. I was going out with some friends." "Why?" "Nothing. Have a good time." "Ray, you said Kayla wanted to ask me something. Please put her on the phone." "It's okay, Angie." "Yes, that's something.
Thank you, officer.
Please put Kayla on the phone."
Bye.
I could only hear one side of the conversation. "Hey, Angie. Dad's gonna take Kyle and I to Chuck E. Cheese's for pizza and games.
Hey.
We were wondering if you'd like to come with us." "Yeah." "Okay,
Thank you
I'll
so
tell
much
him."
for staying
We
the
miss
night
you too.
Again.
Okay, bye.
It really means a lot.
I felt sorry
What
for
are you here
Kayla. I'm sorry, honey, but she already has plans.
We're gonna figure this out.
What do you mean, Dad?
Okay?
She said she'd be here in half an hour. She said to tell you that she's going to buy a car so she doesn't have to use her automobile all the time. Yes, Daddy, she said she misses us. That evening, after we returned from a pizza party where the kids each won a half dozen stuffed animals, thanks to Angie and her play skills, I took the kids to their mom's house. Angie told me it was time to get to know each other better. We went to my apartment and sat on the couch. Angie, you know I love you, don't you? I wouldn't be here now if I was thinking about something else. I want you to make love to me. I haven't trusted any man in a long time. All I ask is that you be caring and gentle. I don't want to be used. I want to be made love to. We started on the couch and moved to the bedroom. We did whatever we wanted. I massaged her feet, licked the whipped cream off her belly, and everything else. We spent half the night caressing, massaging, and making love. I felt best when I could hold her in my arms after making love to her. It felt so good to cuddle and hold her against me. It had been so long since I had done that. She ended up staying out all night. I got up before she did and made us French toast. She came out of the bedroom wearing one of my t-shirts. That t-shirt never looked so good, I told her. I couldn't believe how great she looked even in the morning. She took a quick shower and we sat down to talk. Angie,
Carrie?
what's next for us? You know I love you and my kids love you and my whole family loves you. What do you want to happen next, Ray? I sound like a lawyer. We've only known each other for a few months and we made love for the first time last night.
I am quitting.
I know it's only been a few months, but I want you in my life every day.
If not, I'll
If we haven't made love enough, we can go back to the bedroom and spend all day there.
Fixed, okay?
Angie smiled at that remark.
Sucker. I'll see you soon.
Angie, I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me? Tears came to Angie's eyes. Ray, just so you know, I don't take love lightly. I made a mistake once, like I told you before. Yes, I will marry you. I want you to know that I will always be there for you and the kids. I know what you went through in your first marriage. I will always be honest with you and I will never cheat on you. I will expect the same from you. She walked over to me and kissed me very passionately. Honey, what's the matter? You look happy but sad at the same time, I asked her. These are my thoughts about my dad and how happy he will be. Most young girls think about that special wedding day. How they will put on a white dress, how their dad will walk them down the aisle and give them to their husband. I know that will never happen to me, and it makes me sad. She cried softly. Last time, my father didn't even know I was getting married. By the time I wrote him, I had miscarried and was on my way to divorce. I'm sorry, Ray, I shouldn't be thinking about this right now. After all, I'm going to marry the man my father approves of and who I was in love with from the first time I met him. What? You loved me from the beginning. I wanted you from the first time I saw you, but I know you knew that.
Leave a message.
She smiled sweetly at me
it's
and
me.
asked me when I wanted to tie the
I thought you were
knot.
coming straight back here.
I
made
replied that
lunch.
all arrangements would be
Call
on her
me.
terms. We both agreed that it would be as soon as possible. I asked her if I could start telling everyone, and she said she was going to, so we just needed a date. We decided it would be in 2 months. For the next few days, I was over the moon. I told Amy and her husband Kenny about it. They were both very happy for us. I needed to tell the kids. I called their house and had them both hooked up to the console so I could tell them at the same time. They both yelled how happy they were and how much they liked Angie. I told them it would happen in a couple months,
Carrie?
but I wanted them to be one of the first people I told. I walked into Angie's office and Mary, her secretary, congratulated me. She told me that Angie had already told everyone
Carrie?
and invited everyone to the wedding reception. She called Angie and told me to come in. Angie was already waiting for me. When I walked in, Angie was crying quietly. What's the matter, Angie?
Hi, it's Carrie.
I called
Leave a
the
message.
prison, spoke to the
Hey,
warden,
it's
and
me
asked him if
again
my
for
dad
the
could get a
5th
day's
time.
leave to attend our
Where
wedding.
are you?
He told me that
The
my
sun's
dad is
going
not
down. You're
allowed to
supposed
leave
to
the
be back
prison under
hours
any
ago.
circumstances. His
I
life
was starting to
sentence means
worry.
just that. He told me it was
Look,
out of
if you
his
get this
hands
news,
and there
call
was
me,
nothing he
please.
could do.
Please.
I'm so sorry, Angie. I know your father's presence means a lot to you. It's getting worse, Ray. Dad's cancer, although it was in remission, is now back. He has 3 to 6 months to live. She started to cry and I pulled her to my chest.
Hi, it's
I
Carrie.
thought,
Leave
why,
a
Lord?
message.
Why did you
Carrie,
do this
it's
to
me
her?
Again.
She was a good person and I was really hurting for her.
calling you, so if you get
Angie,
these,
I've been buying your
please give me
father
a call
cigarettes
back.
since I was released. It was a deal I made with him. I'm sorry. It's not your fault.
Tony?
Dad doesn't smoke anymore.
No.
He uses the packs of cigarettes people send him to barter with other inmates.
Okay.
You didn't contribute to his cancer.
It's me.
No, please.
I had an idea, but I didn't want to tell Angie about it and take away her hope. I kissed her goodbye and told her I'd see her the next day. I canceled work the next day and went to the prison to see Keeler and the warden. When Keeler saw me, he smiled. You take good care of my little girl, Ray. All I ask is that you make her happy. She deserves so much better in life than what she's gotten. I explained my idea to Keeler, and at first he said no, but finally he agreed if I could persuade the warden. Then I told him I would see him later. I had an appointment with the warden. The warden greeted me. Well, Ray, I see you're keeping your cool and getting married. I'm sorry about Keeler, but he's a life prisoner and we can't let him out for his daughter's wedding. Warden, are you in full control of the prison and can make most decisions about the facilities? What's your point, Ray? Can we get married on the hotel grounds? We can use the chapel and Keeler can walk his daughter down the aisle? You and Keeler's daughter want to get married here? In prison just to have her father around? Is that what you're asking? Yes, sir. She hasn't seen her father in over 14 years, and he is dying, as you know. All we ask is to use the chapel to get married. I know that prisoners have been married here before. Okay, Ray, I'll set it up from this side.
Thanks, guys.
It doesn't have to be a big celebration. You can only invite 3 outsiders to the prison besides yourself and your fiancée. I'll let Keeler invite a few of his fellow inmates. You will have to use the services of a prison attendant. I thanked the warden and headed back
Do you know
to
how long
Keeler.
that thing was in my house?
Dave! Keeler laughed when I called him
That's
by
over
name.
now. All right.
The warden agreed with
And
my
we've
idea.
doubled down on our search.
I'm going back to tell Angie.
We will find him.
Thanks, Dave. I know it means a lot to our girl.
But until we do,
Dave smiled
I
at
can have
me.
officers posted
Ray,
outside
write down the
day and
number
night
I'm
if
going to
you'd
give
like.
you.
Yes.
I wrote it down
please.
for Angie.
Okay.
When you go to the bank, tell Angie to get her birth
Have
certificate.
you had any
The account
other
is in her
contact
maiden
with
name.
Sort of since he last showed
I
up
wrote
at
down
your
the information and
front
told
door?
Dave that I was sorry for his illness.
No.
Just take care
It
of
is
my
the
little
right
girl,
thing,
that's all I ask,
Holiness.
Dave replied.
I know it's a scary situation.
I went
but
back to Angie's office.
We're here.
She saw the
Help you
smile
through
on
it.
my face and asked what was wrong.
Thank you.
You don't mind getting married in prison?
Detective.
I asked.
My friend Carrie, I
What?
haven't been able to get a hold of
What
her.
are you talking about, Ray?
I mean, I've left her
I
a
told
ton
her
of
about my
voicemails.
conversation with the
I
warden
went to her
and that her
apartment
father would be
to
allowed
find
to
her,
walk her
but I
down
just
the
found
aisle.
some cardboard boxes
She
that I
started
think were
crying
hers.
big happy tears.
When did you last see her?
God, I love you, Ray.
2 nights ago, she spent the
I
night
told her
here.
about the safety deposit
She
box
left
and
the
we
next
went to see
morning,
what was
said
in
she was
it.
going to quit her job, but
I'm Angelina
she never
Juanita
came
Miller,
back.
and I'd like to see my
How long was
safety
she gonna quit her
deposit
job?
box.
With everything that's happening here, we
Angie gave
decided
him her
we were gonna
number,
leave town
and he
together.
looked at her birth certificate. He walked
this
us over to
time,
the
if you
safe
had
deposit
to,
box, opened it,
Did you
and left
discuss
the
it?
room. The
Here?
first thing we noticed was a
Wow.
note from her father.
Oh my God.
Dear Angie, if you're opening
Oh my
this
God, he
box,
heard
it means
us.
you're either getting married or I've already passed
Oh my
away.
God, he's gonna kill her.
No.
I hope
Wait
it's
a
the
minute. We
former.
don't know that.
In the
We
little
don't know
box is
anything
your
yet.
mother's engagement ring.
I will look into it. I
I
promise
know
you that.
everyone wondered where
In
it
fact,
went,
the minute
but I
leave
put it here for
I will head
safekeeping.
down to the antique store
I want you
and
to
see
have
that
it and
was
wear
for
it with
a time
pride.
ago.
Thank you.
Your mother had her
But in the
faults, but she
meanwhile,
loved you.
as
And
a
I know she would
precaution,
want
it
you to
might
have
be
her
best
wedding
to get
ring.
you to a safer location.
There are also bonds here totaling
Alright.
over $15,000
Would you
that will
be
help
okay
pay
with
for
that?
your wedding. I formalized them before I was sent
Yeah.
away. When you see
Then go
your brother and
outside and
sister,
coordinate with
tell
the
them
other
there's a
officers.
box for each
Or
of them
I've
too,
packed some things,
if they haven't
whatever
gotten
you think
theirs
you
yet.
might need.
Only
I'm
yours
right
has a
back.
ring in
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Congratulations, and always be honest with your husband. With love, Daddy. Angie and I talked about our wedding. We decided to invite her brother Brad and sister Lisa if they would come. And also my
Carrie?
sister Amy.
Linda?
We would invite family and friends to the reception,
Oh my God, where the hell
which would be
are
held
you?
shortly after the wedding. Angie and Amy spent
Oh
the
my
next
God,
month getting
are you
everything
okay?
ready for the reception.
I'm not.
Everything had to be paid extra for
Carrie?
since the wedding was so soon. But I wanted Angie to have as much of her dream as possible.
Speak to you.
Amy said she would
He
use her
wants you to
digital
meet
camera
him
and take
here.
pictures.
Where?
Angie and I
At
went
the
to her
old
brother and
mechanic
sister's
factory.
house. She introduced me to
He
them.
said you would know what
They
that
told me
meant.
they didn't hate their
Yeah,
father.
I do.
They hate what he did.
1 hour.
Angie
If you
explained to them
don't
what the
make it
wedding
in
was and why she was
time,
spending it in jail.
Bring the police.
Both Brad and Lisa had
He'll
tears
make
come to their eyes when they
He
learned
wants
that their
you to
father
see
was
if you
dying.
Understand.
Yes,
After they
I
agreed to go to the
understand.
wedding, Angie gave them their
I'll
bank
be right
deposit
there,
box
okay?
numbers. They were surprised that their father had set aside something for them. On the day of the wedding,
So we're all
Angie and
set.
I drove to the prison together. Amy and her
You
husband
okay?
came too, but her husband was waiting
yeah,
for her in the
you
car.
just startled me.
When we entered the prison, I had a costume
All right,
for
I'm off to
killer.
the antique store.
One of the guards took it
As soon
to
as
her.
I learn something,
I
I'll
was
let you
wearing
know.
the tuxedo I had rented for the occasion.
I'll take care of you.
Amy
Ready to
went into
go.
the room with Angie to help her with
I
her
just
wedding
need a few more
dress.
minutes.
All right.
Angie didn't want me to see
Sure
her
you're
until
all
she
right.
entered the chapel.
Yes, yeah, I'm fine.
I went into
Thank
the
you.
chapel to wait for Angie. Brad and Lisa walked in. Brad was going to be my best man, and Lisa was going to be Angie's maid of honor. There was a small piano in the chapel, and one of the prisoners was playing some songs on it. The guard brought in 5 other prisoners who were friends of Killer, Dave, and sat them down. The warden came in with the priest and smiled. He came up to me and said that after the ceremony, they had cake and punch for everyone. For a warden, he wasn't such a bad guy. The pianist began to play "Here Comes the Bride," and everyone stood up. Angie walked through the door, accompanied by her father. Both had tears running down their cheeks. Angie had gotten her wish. Her father would walk her down the aisle on her wedding day. When they were in front of the chapel, everyone took their seats except for our little wedding party. Another guard came in and closed the door. The priest pronounces, "Who gives this woman to this man?" "Yes, sir," Dave replied proudly and sat down. "Angelina Juanita Miller Brady, do you take Raymond Michael Harper to be your husband?" The priest continued his presentation and then asked me the same question. We made sure he answered, "To love and honor from this day forward." That's how we both felt. No one was ever to come between us. We had both had a difficult life up to that point. We knew we would do everything we could to make our marriage work. After saying my vows, I kissed the bride. She then turned around and kissed and hugged her father. We all went to an adjoining room to talk for a few minutes and to eat cake and punch provided by the warden. Brad and Lisa walked over to their father and hugged him. It was the first time in almost 15 years that they had talked to him. There were many tears. Tears of joy and tears of remorse. They knew their father was dying, and they wanted him to know that they still loved him. Amy took pictures of Angie and me throughout the service. She also took as many pictures as she could of Dave with his 3 children. She captured the tears, hugs, and even a little laughter they all shared in that short period of time. She left, and she and her husband took the photos to a 24-hour photo center where they were developed and some enlarged. We said goodbye to Dave and the warden. We thanked him for making Angie's dream come true. As we left, we noticed that Brad and Lisa were still talking to their father. It was a wonderful sight to see. We headed back into town and to the reception. Everyone we invited was present. The first people we saw were Kyle and Kayla, who were jumping up and down when we got out of the car. They ran up to us and hugged us. We walked into the auditorium and were greeted with shouts of joy. My parents were there with tears in their eyes, as was almost everyone who greeted us. Many of Angie's friends were there to greet us. Most of them I had never met. I noticed Mary as she came over and gave us a hug. About a half hour later, Amy showed up with the pictures. She enlarged some of our pictures. She spread them out on the table for everyone to look at. Brad and Lisa stopped by the house to pick up their families. Brad was with his wife and 2 children. Lisa was with her husband and 3 children. Both families walked up to Dave's picture and told the kids that this was their grandfather. Amy told them that she had taken 4 sets of pictures, and after the reception,
You wanna tell
each
her or should
family
I?
would be able to take a set home.
Tony?
There was one for Brad and Lisa, one for Angie and me, and of course one for Amy. I wanted to tell you how incredible Angie looked in her wedding dress. If she had wings, she would have looked like an angel that God sent. To me, she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and she was my wife. I think most men feel that way about their wives. We danced and ate and danced some more. To the clinking of glasses, our lips were together most of the night. People I worked with told me I was a very lucky man. Believe me, I didn't need to say that. I knew I had the ring, and I intended to hold on to it forever. For those of you wondering, Deb and Pat did not attend our wedding. It was Angie's day, and I didn't want anything to ruin it. Seeing her and her father walk down the aisle, seeing her brother and sister make peace with their father. The family becoming whole again. I will never forget that day. Epilogue. It's been 6 months since our wedding day. Debbie and Pat got married last month. I was pleased to see that she is really trying to get her life together. My children tell me that Pat is treating them well. I asked about Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob, and my kids tell me they moved to another state.
So
I was moved to the day shift so I could see the kids more often and be home with Angie every night. She was pregnant with our baby. 3 months after we were married, Dave Keeler passed away. The kids visited him every month until his passing. It was sad, but we had time to tell him about Angie's pregnancy.
And that's why I
We
loved
told
your
him it was
house.
going to be a boy and we would name him David Raymond. That brought a smile to Dave's face.
He didn't expect to be
I
so
look back,
taken with
remembering everything that
Right.
happened. The cheating wife,
First you
prison,
get back in,
meeting the
now
woman of
Linda.
my dreams and then marrying her.
You got a real problem.
Now I was
don't you?
starting over and about to be a father again.
I didn't
Not a day
expect
goes
you to
by
know
that I
how
don't
did
thank
something
God for what I have.
was
I
my
thank him for
slip.
giving Angie and me another chance at happiness.
Make it look like more than a
That's
attempted
it.
murder.
Thanks for
When you
watching. I
follow
hope you
Linda
enjoyed
wherever she
it.
went.
So subscribe to my channel and watch the next
Psycho.
video.